U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris assailed Donald Trump at her first campaign rally after replacing Joe Biden as the Democratic presidential candidate. A Reuters Ipsos opinion poll shows Harris taking a marginal lead over her rival Donald Trump. As per the poll, after taking over the nomination, Harris leads Trump 44% to 42% among registered voters. A week before Biden's exit, Harris and Trump tied at 44%, and at the beginning of the month, Trump was ahead by a percentage point. Former U.S. President Donald Trump will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at his Palm Beach resort in Florida this week. This comes as Netanyahu arrived in Washington on Monday for a multi-day visit. He will be addressing the U.S. Congress on Wednesday. The meeting with Trump, which was originally slated for Wednesday, has been shifted to Friday. The postponement comes following a request from the Israeli leader. About 3,000 migrants embarked on a foot journey to from Mexico to the United States. This comes after migrants launched 2 caravans last week. The trek, which started last weekend, is probably the last chance of many migrants to reach the border ahead of U.S. elections. The move comes after growing fears of new restrictions if Donald Trump becomes the new U.S. president. Trump has said that if he comes back to power, a wall will be built along the U.S.-Mexico border, carrying out the largest deportation operation. The U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Sheitel has resigned from her job following the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said that the Secret Service Deputy Director Ronald Rowe, a veteran of the agency, will now serve as the acting director. U.S. President Joe Biden thanked the Secret Service Director Kimberly Sheitel for her service. Biden said that he would appoint a successor soon. 2 weeks following the assassination attempt on Republican nominee Donald Trump, a new body cam footage has been released. The footage shows a Secret Service and local police officer near the body of the deceased gunman, identified as Thomas Matthew Crooks. The footage was captured moments after the assassination attempt on Trump. The video, captured by Butler County Emergency Services units, was released by the Office of Republican Senator Chuck Grassley. Bob Menendez announced his resignation following his conviction on corruption charges. The senator will be stepping down on the 20th of August, and this comes after Menendez had to bow to pressure from fellow Democrats to resign from the job. The 70-year-old was found guilty by a Manhattan federal court on 16 criminal counts, which includes bribery and acting as an agent for Egypt's government. According to New Jersey Governor, a new senator will be replacing Menendez soon. Relatives of Gaza hostages staged protests near Capitol building in Washington, D.C. The protesters were urging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to finalize hostage deal and bring them home. Jewish protesters took to the Capitol Hill to demand a ceasefire. These protests are expected to continue and even become bigger until the Israeli Prime Minister's Congress address, which is set to happen on Wednesday. Israel has condemned an agreement brokered by China to bring Hamas into national reconciliation government after war in Gaza. Israel's Foreign Minister Israel Katz said that any involvement of Hamas in governance is unacceptable to Israel and the United States. He said that Hamas rule will be crushed. He accused Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas of embracing Hamas for signing the deal, even though the group is responsible for the October 7th attacks. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has said that Israel is nearing a deal for the release of hostages. He also mentioned that the Israeli forces are moving closer to the complete defeat of Hamas. This comes as the US State Department has dismissed the agreement between Hamas and Fatah to form an interim national reconciliation government that will rule Gaza post the war. UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy has arrived in New Delhi, making his first trip to India. His visit will focus on reinforcing the UK's commitment to securing a free trade agreement with the country. Lammy will meet his counterpart, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, during this visit. This will be the first visit to India, by a top official of the government led by Keir Starmer. In Jammu and Kashmir, at least one terrorist has been killed and a soldier injured in an overnight encounter in Kupwara district. The army has issued a statement that one unidentified militant has been eliminated and a non-commissioned officer has been injured in the firefight. According to reports, a joint search operation launched by the Indian Army and the J&K police is currently underway. The encounter takes place amid an uptick in terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir. Japan is protesting against Russia's announcement that it is banning 13 Japanese business leaders. The business leaders are part of corporate giants, which includes the likes of Toyota, Motor Corp. This comes after Tokyo imposed sanctions on Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. In a statement, the Japanese government condemned the ban, calling it absolutely unacceptable. South Korean security service has said that North Korean balloons carrying trash landed near the presidential office. The security service in a statement said that the trash identified in the area around the government complex did not contain any contamination or any risk. Since May, North Korea has periodically sent hundreds of balloons to the south. This has prompted South Korea to restart loudspeaker broadcasts targeting the north. Jailed former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan refuses to undergo polygraph and voice matching tests. This comes as part of a probe in connection with violence in the country last year. On Tuesday, a 12-member forensic team was sent to the Diyala jail, where the 71-year-old is serving his time. Last year, riots were triggered across the country, which led to the arrest of former Prime Minister in a £190 million corruption case. With a daily decline of 620,000 barrels from their April peak, Russia's 4-week average oil exports have fallen for 3 consecutive weeks, reaching their lowest point since December. Flows are expected to continue falling. 2 Baltic ports serving the nation have seen a 41% decline in weekly exports since mid-June. Reasons for the drop include domestic refining rebound, which is expected to hit a 6-month high in July, and Russia's improved compliance with an OPEC Plus production target. Some of that advancement might be ruined if the refinery owned by Rosneft is attacked by Ukrainian drones. As homeowners hold out on hope for additional fall in mortgage rates and consumers resist ever-increasing prices, existing home sales in the United States hit a new low in June, the weakest monthly pace since 2010. The National Association of Realtors said on Tuesday that the annualized rate of contract closing fell to 3.89 million, a decline of 5.4% from May. This was the 4th consecutive drop, and the rate was lower than predicted in a Bloomberg survey of financial experts. The median sales price increased 4.1% to $426,900 in June, marking yet another record in the subsequent slowdown. Perhaps Nicolas Maduro's crowning achievement will be the crushing hyperinflation. The days of Venezuelans lugging around large amounts of cash through perilous streets and dealing with surging prices. According to estimations based on data from the central bank, yearly inflation has dropped from a peak of 130,000% 6 years ago to 60% as of May. After reaching a peak of 200% in 2018, Bloomberg's inflation measure has now fallen to around 27% today. The Bloomberg inflation measure was an important indicator during the years when the government withheld economic data. Following a successful restructuring of its debts, Ghana is anticipating economic growth this year would be in line with the projections made by the International Monetary Fund. During Tuesday's midterm budget review, Finance Minister Mohamed Amin Adam announced that the world's second-largest cocoa producer had increased its 2024 GDP growth prediction to 3.1% from 2.8%. The Finance Minister said, and I'm quoting, "Our economic recovery is fast and strong. We are determined to stay the course on our fiscal consolidation program." Following its default in December 2022, Ghana successfully restructured its $43 billion debt recently. There is little indication that the United States home builders stocks wild surge will end anytime soon. The bull run has placed the sector on pace for its greatest month so far this year. In the 10 days through Monday, home builders stock has surged by 22%, the fastest growth rate since May 2020. Bets that the US Central Bank will start easing sooner than planned were supported by an earlier inflation print in July that was lower than predicted. The group's growth prospects were boosted by the optimistic results reported by the industry leader, D.R. Horton, last week. The death toll in landslides in Ethiopia has increased to 229 while a search operation is underway. Locals were desperately on the lookout for survivors with shovels in bare hands. President Abiy Ahmed expressed his condolences and ordered authorities to minimize the impact of the disaster. Home to 120 million people, the East African nation is highly vulnerable to climate change, climate disasters which include floods and droughts. Taiwan has shut down offices, schools and tourist sites as Typhoon Gaemi is approaching the island. Typhoon's outer skirt is bringing heavy rain to much of the island. The powerful typhoon is already bringing heavy rain to much of the island, as I mentioned, but the eye of the storm is expected to make landfall on the northern county of Lan on Wednesday evening. More than 2,000 people have been evacuated from the mountainous region, which is at risk of landslides from the extremely torrential rain. Heavy rain expected over India's national capital of New Delhi and the surrounding regions. The IMD has issued a yellow alert predicting heavy to moderate rainfall and thunderstorms in the city. The maximum temperature is likely to hover around 36 degrees Celsius, while the minimum temperature is set to hover around 27 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, several parts of Delhi and the national capital region received rainfall in the wee hours of Wednesday, bringing some relief from July's humidity. Regulators in the United States, European Union and Britain have signed a joint statement to ensure effective competition in the artificial intelligence space. The European Commission, UK's Competition and Markets Authority US Department of Justice and US Federal Trade Commission have all agreed to safeguard against tactics that could undermine fair competition. The common principles set by the regulators include fair dealing, prevention of exclusionary tactics, and closer scrutiny of investments and partnerships between established companies and newcomers. Italy's tax police have seized nearly $131 million from an Italian unit of e-commerce giant Amazon, according to prosecutors. This comes as part of an investigation into alleged tax fraud and illegal labor practices. Officials say the unit used cooperatives and limited liability companies to supply workers to avoid bad tax duties and reduce social security payments. This system has allegedly helped Amazon keep its prices competitive in the Italian market. Google has decided to retain third-party cookie in its Chrome browser. This comes after years of pledging to phase them out. Advertisers have raised concerns that losing cookies would limit their ability to personalize advertisements and make them dependent on Google's user databases. Cookies help websites and advertisers track browsing habits, but can also be used for unwanted surveillance. Chinese scientists have produced an ultra-thin semiconductor material 0.7 nanometers thick compared to silicon's typical 5 to 10 nanometers. This development can lead to faster and more energy-efficient microchips. The discovery can help in reducing the size of traditional silicon-based chips. As devices shrink, silicon chips face physical limits that affect their performance, and this alternative consumes less power and is ideal for small-sized transistors in next-generation chips.